Again.
Yeah, we did 3 o'clock. Start basically 1 week.
Yeah. Good.
You came to the table by yourself.
Cindy. Hanging.
Recording in progress.
Okay, there we go. It's now there we go. It is now 3 o'clock, and I'm going to call this meeting of the Qathet Regional Hospital Board meeting to order. First, I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the traditional territories of the Tla'amin peoples. And with that, I'm moving on to approval of the agenda. It's all been circulated. Director Brander.
I'd actually like to move the agenda without item 14.1.
Without item 14.
If I get a seconder, I'll explain myself.
Sure. Is there a seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay. I guess.
Yes.
Director Park was just raising her hand. I see this as board procedure bylaw review discussion. I don't see any action associated with it. I don't see any motion associated with it. And we already have a resolution from a previous meeting that is directing the staff to write a report regarding the procedure bylaw. So I think for the sake of having meeting efficiency, we're going to have something like this presented. I think it needs to be as a notice of motion and focused on what we're going to discuss about the procedure bylaw, so that I can come adequately prepared, and also so the public can know what aspects of the procedure bylaw we're discussing. But like in this case, I think it's already been directed that staff review it, and when they come back with the report, we'll have plenty of time to discuss it then. So I think for, like I said, meeting efficiency, I think it should be taken off the agenda.
Thank you. Is there any other speakers for this item? Okay, and I'll explain why I added this item to the agenda. At AVICC with discussions with L.A. Mino, one of the things that he said was you can put a motion for the assembly, but that is really proposing a solution. And really we should identify what the problem is. This is an item that we adopted a resolution last year, and I put it on the agenda simply to get it before us so that we can discuss what the problem is and how we wish to move forward. Currently, the Regional Hospital District Board does not have any committee of the whole meetings scheduled, and it was my thoughts that we can bring this item back for consideration. There is an upcoming staff report, but I wanted to ask the Assembly, would it be better for us to reinstitute the committee of the whole of the Regional Hospital Board to handle this item in the future? And that's why I placed it on the agenda. Though right now the motion is, do we adopt the agenda without this item for discussion? And I know we're kind of getting into the discussion of the proposed motion later on. So that was the reason why I bring it before the Assembly. Brett?
I just want to clarify that I think it could be brought back as a notice of motion, but just with more specific wording so that we understand why we're looking at it, I guess. Right now, it's just such a broad topic, and it just says discussion. There's no action associated with it.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I have a question, and that is, why is it on this agenda and not a regional board committee of the whole or board agenda? The procedure bylaw applies to everything.
Yes. For Director Southcott, who was not here last year, this was actually a motion that was adopted by the Regional Hospital District Board rather than the Qathet Regional Board. And when it came back for reconsideration, I believe in June of last year, it was decided that the discussion would stay with the Regional Hospital District because it does impact the whole hospital board, which includes Tla'amin Nation. Whereas if it went to the Regional District Board, it would not include the Tla'amin representative.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Director Fall.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a question through the Chair to staff. So given what Director Brander said, could staff clarify what the process would be? If we didn't include this on the agenda right now, what would be the process that we can expect in terms of bringing this item forward for discussion?
Through the Chair, our CIO.
Excuse me. I'd like to refer to officer because she's got the legwork already done on this.
Thank you. Through the Chair. As you guys might remember, we surveyed you late November or December, October, November for feedback. We received that feedback. It was originally scheduled to be completed in December. Due to delays with this adopting the schedule, we're working on it right now, and we'll be working on it through May. So we expect to bring it forward within the next quarter. But most of the work is done. Like, we've received most of the feedback. We've received all the feedback. We're just now going through procedurally.
Does that answer your question, Director Fall?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Chair. And I'd be comfortable just waiting for that. I think we can discuss how we proceed, but rather than throwing something else into the works, I think it seems to make sense to just wait for that, and then we can discuss whether we want to punt that to a committee of the whole or whether we deal with it through the board. And personally, I don't see any particular reason why we'd have to have a hospital district committee of the whole. I'm not averse to it. I think either way is fine. But as a board, we could also discuss it, and then we don't have to finalize decisions. We can effectively refer, postpone decisions to the next board meeting, which can function similarly.
Yeah, that sounds fine. And also, just to clarify, anyone with any confusion, I believe the process for this item, which is getting into the details, this is actually the Qathet Regional Districts Board Procedure Bylaw. So whatever the regional hospital district ends up deciding on would ultimately be referred to the Qathet Regional District Board of Directors for ultimate decision. But I'm happy to go whichever way, whatever the Assembly wishes. Anyone else wish to speak? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All in favor of adopting the agenda without item 14.1? Any opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. Okay. Oh,
I think he was.
I think Director Lennox was just a little delayed. Is that correct? Okay, he was in favor. Okay, so that's unanimous. Okay, moving on to the next item. Adoption of.
Director Elliott has joined us.
Oh, good. Director Elliott, can you hear us okay? Good. Thumbs up. Okay, on to item number 3, adoption of the minutes. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, can I have a motion to adopt? Director Brander, seconded by Director Southcott. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. Oh, Director McCormick. Oh, sorry. Must have been a delayed seconder. Okay. Sorry. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None. That is carried. Okay, on to delegations and inquiries. Cory Vanderhorst, MNP, redraft audited 2024 financial statements. And just to clarify to anyone who's a little confused about our meeting schedules today, because usually we have planning committee, we kind of jostled our schedules so that we could get these audited financial statements all on the same day. Okay, floor is yours, Cory.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to share screen for a second here. Bear with me. There we go. So I'm hoping you can see the statement of operations for the regional hospital district. Great, seeing some nods. Thank you for inviting me here to attend the Regional Hospital District Board meeting today. I'll quickly go through a high-level summary of the financial statements, and then I'd be happy to answer any questions at the end. Before I get started, a big thank you to Linda Greenan and Celind in the finance department for working on the audit with us this year. It goes very smoothly. We really appreciate their efforts. So I've got the statement of operations or the income statement up here. We are happy to be providing a clean audit opinion again this year. We're satisfied that the financial statements are prepared accurately in all material respects in accordance with local government accounting standards. To give you a quick highlights of the 2024 activities, you can see here that revenues for the year were $4.9 million. Tax levy as per the budget. The increase over the expected budgeted amounts is really that interest income that as the rates were higher through 2024, you earned $414,000 and more than 2023 and more than was expected for budget. On the expense side of things, the regional hospital district had $1.9 million in expenses, all the usual interest on debt and amortization expenses, and the grants to Vancouver Coastal Health were $222,000 for the year, down a little bit from budget, which is sort of as expected. Depends on the timing of when Coastal Health submits some of their expenses. But at the end of the year, an annual surplus of just over $3 million. If I scroll back up to the balance sheet or the statement of financial position, you can see the hospital district has $9 million of cash and investments held at the regional district. And then at the end of the year, debenture debt is down to $15.1 million. That's being paid down on schedule. There's a little bit of accrued interest at the year end. Deferred revenue is related to the insurance and payments from Vancouver Coastal Health for the facility. And then this asset retirement obligation number has decreased significantly. The estimate in the prior year of $516,000, and the decrease is really two items. One is revising the estimates down as we had some new information come in around the building, one of the buildings that is owned by the hospital district, and the other is work done by the Miklat Resource Society to do some remediation throughout the year. So that also decreased the expected liability that might have to be spent in future years. And this is not something for 2025. That's if any future remediation work happens, that's what the anticipated cost will be. And the tangible capital assets at the end of the year are $21.3 million. So accumulated surplus of 14.8 is really about $6 million of or $5 million of the capital assets minus the debt, plus that $9 million of cash and receivables. So that's a really quick summary, but I would be happy to answer any questions if the board has questions on the financials.
Thank you for your presentation. Are there any questions from members of the board? Looking around, not seeing anyone jump up. Director Fall.
Thank you, Chair. Just one question, and maybe just I just want to probably rehear you say what you said at the very beginning. And thank you for the clear reports. It's always very good, and it's always good to see you. But basically, it's my understanding that when I look at these auditing reports, there's a lot of details that are I read and it's hard to understand. But I go right to the kind of where is it the basically the opinion, and that basically that catches it. And if the auditor's saying, and if you're saying there's no problems, then that's a thumbs up, and then the rest of it is a relaxed read as opposed to, okay, let's figure out where the problem is. So is that a correct understanding of the reading of these reports?
Thank you, Director Fall. Yes, that's the correct reading. There's a paragraph in our longer report there that really sums it up by saying, that the language I use are presented fairly in all material respects. That's me telling you as the board that I think the financial statements are clean. I think there's no significant differences or errors in them, and that all the appropriate accounting standards and presentation is correct for the numbers.
That's great. Thank you very much. And I think it's mostly I ask that just because of the, for the public, if there's anyone who cares to watch these meetings to actually, they know we're all good. There's big numbers and the numbers are going up and down. We get, big increases because of requests from VCH, and then we pay it down fairly rapidly, but it goes back up rapidly too, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on whether you're looking at the asset or the financing. But I think for the public to know that, all's good and the finances are all in good order and we're doing a good job here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Director Paul. And next on our speakers list, we have Director Elliott. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So my question is fairly simple. You talked about a $3 million surplus. Was that already accounted for in our budgeting for this year?
Yes,
thank you, Director. And I'll turn it back to staff for that one. I haven't actually seen your 2025 budget yet.
Okay, through the chair, I guess that's a question for our Manager of Financial Services, Ms. Greenan. Is she available? Oh, there she is.
Thank you, Chair. The $3 million surplus is actually, we transferred that to the reserve. That was the planned transfer to reserve that was in the budget.
Great, thank you.
Good. Anyone else? Oh, Director Southcott, go ahead.
Good Chair. This is a question that goes back to page 7 in the report. It's to do with materiality. And I was wondering why it's increased quite a bit. I don't even know if that's significant, but it did increase by about 90%. Between 2023 and 2024. I was wondering why. There was a reason for that. I tried to figure this out myself, and I found myself in a much larger rabbit hole than I expected. So I climbed out.
Sure. Thank you, Director. So the quickest answer is to go back to your statement of operations and look at revenue. So when we're calculating that materiality number, we're using revenue as a driver of activity. Your revenues year over year increased from $2.9 million to 4.9. So almost or just over a $2 million increase. So that's where you're getting that, the 75 to 80% increase in the materiality number. And that way the audit work sort of moves in line with the activity and the funding for the year.
Thank you.
Okay. Screening, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just remind the board the increase in revenue was because the board made a deliberate decision to add more funds to the reserve annually, and that started in 2024.
Okay. Anyone else? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation. And we will get to that item officially with 12.2. Okay, moving on. There is no unfinished business. There is no correspondence. Business arising from correspondence, there is none. Chair's report will be very brief. There is no chair's report other than I've been having some conversations with a few of the other chairs, and I've kind of been unplugged for the last several weeks since getting back from AVICC. Moving on then to the consent agenda, we have none. No resolutions from the consent agenda, skipping resolutions, and all the way down to 12 reports. 12.1 Miklat Recovery Program request for funding. How would we like to proceed? Director McCormick.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move option 2 in the report, which is to seek a legal opinion in relation to the funding. And it's contained on page 4 of this report. And if it's seconded, I'd like to speak to it.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Director Fall.
Seconded, yeah.
Floor is yours, Director McCormick.
Thank you, Chair. I understand the dilemma. Our staff can't move forward until they can be assured that this is indeed a bona fide health facility. So I get that. But I also understand Miklat's situation where they have gone into debt to accommodate a very badly needed facility in this region. If it wasn't so badly needed, I might take a different stance. But the fact that it is, and they've gone ahead with it, is really, I think, a reason for us not to just let it go and deny it, but rather to at least make the effort to look into it and find out, what is the legal opinion? Is this a health facility or isn't it? And if it isn't, then clearly that's the end of the discussion because staff can't move forward. However, if it is, then I think it compels us to reconsider this item. So that's why I think seeking a legal opinion is the right way to go.
Okay, any other speakers? Director Southcott.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm just looking for it, my agenda, but I was going to support option 3, which I think is just waiting for staff to come up with that answer. I think I tend to favor option 2, Director McCormick's rationale, but in terms of how much time might go by before that answer would be available, would it be substantially quicker with option 2 than option 3? And is my reasoning solid?
Through the chair to our CAO.
Excuse me, through the chair. I would recommend option 2 if you're deciding between the two. The rationale is this. past experiences, trying to get confirmations from the Ministry of Health, it's taken months. I think you'll get a legal opinion sooner than you will get a response from the Ministry of Health.
Any other speakers on the list? Director Fall.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad Director Southcott asked that question, because I'm kind of torn between them, but none of us want to spend money, but I think we also want timeliness here. And I think Miklat isn't really able probably to figure this out. They're just saying, from my understanding, that they consider that. Their understanding is it is a health facility, but they can't make that determination. And so either we hear from the Ministry of Health or from VCH, or we get a legal opinion to back us up. So I think that makes sense. And I guess the question I have, maybe through the chair to the appropriate staff, would be, is there any idea of approximately how much this might cost, and do we have sufficient funds in the budget in the appropriate line item?
Good question. Through the chair, I will recognize Linda Greenan.
Thank you, Chair. We don't have an estimate of the cost, but we do have some funds. We always keep some funds in the legal budget for the hospital district for things that come up like this. So I think there's $10,000 in the 2025 budget for legal fees. So I think that it would be covered in that budget.
Thank you. And I mean, we all hope it would be much less than that, but you never know with legal costs. But I'm in favor of moving ahead.
Okay, anyone else? I'm going to put myself on the speakers list. With what happened over the weekend, I think we can all agree that mental health and addiction services are severely lacking across the province. And I'm in favor of this legal opinion request because I think it's not just Miklat. There might be other services and other facilities in the future that we may want to get into funding. Now, looking at this particular funding request, I believe the provincial government has provided $300,000 and they're requesting about $500,000. And we usually partner with VCH on a 60-40 split. So whatever the legal opinion comes back with, I really do hope that the provincial government will step up and provide the appropriate funding, because I also see the community forest has offered up about $1 million to this already, which is no small chunk of change. And I really think that with what's going on, the province really needs to be stepping up to the plate for our healthcare facilities, not just our major hospitals, but also mental health and addictions and small satellite facilities. So I'm in favor of this motion, and I thank Director McCormick for moving it. Anyone else? Seeing none, Director Elliott, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for everyone's comment. I guess the legal opinion would be about whether it's a health facility. I'm thinking we would also be asking our legal folks if it is a 60-40 split normally, and does this kind of meet the criteria for that as well? And I guess it's maybe the same question, but I'm relating it specifically to the 60-40 split that we normally do. Is that a good idea or not? I guess that would be for our CAO.
I'll ask that question through the chair, but I think that would not necessarily be a question for the lawyers. That'd be more for Vancouver Coastal Health. See, I saw a nod from our CAO. Is that correct?
Through the chair, I think this is a direct ask from Miklat to the board.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that CH has any participation with Miklat. So I don't know if the 60-40 split actually exists, unless you folks through CH talk about their contribution or what they're willing to contribute to.
So on that, based on what the legal opinion comes back with, we might then follow up with a letter asking for funding partnership with Vancouver Coastal Health at a later date. Is that be a fair saying a nod from our CAO? Okay, does that answer your question, Director Elliott? Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Okay, Director Fall.
Yes, sorry, Chair. I just had one other thought that entered my head, which is peripherally related or kind of directly follow on, and I think something we might think about. It seems to me like it shouldn't be a big deal for, I don't understand why VCH can't just say, yeah, it is. Don't they have a list of facilities that they just look it up and say, yeah, those are approved or not. And I think it's something we might consider at a future time to either ask the province, the Ministry of Health, or VCH for clarifying what are the set of facilities in our regional district do they consider to be health facilities, because we don't want to do this if there are other funding requests. We would like to know either rather rapidly to be able to say, yeah, those are, it shouldn't be hard. I know the Judith Fisher Center on Lasqueti Island is, and probably the Texada Health Center, but it shouldn't be that hard. It should, I would have, if you'd asked me before this report, just ask VCH, that they would just go, oh, let me check. Oh yeah, it is, or it isn't. I mean, do they, it's not clear to me why, a legal opinion would, I understand because of the report we have to do this, but I don't understand at some level why VCH can't just tell us and why it's hard for them to determine. But that's just a side comment. And I think maybe it might be a letter that we write to them. Maybe if we do send a letter asking for support for the funding, we also mention that aspect in that letter.
Those are very good comments. And I think that can also be included in our working group that we have with VCH and the board. Director McCormick, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I totally agree with Director Paul's point. And the lack of clarity is something that really would concern hospital districts, not just us, but everyone. So I think a subsequent motion, once this motion has been considered, then a subsequent motion to make that inquiry of VCH for that definition or the list of defined facilities would be great. I'd support it.
We're still on this motion at the moment. Seeing no one else, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None. That is carried. Do we want to have a subsequent motion asking for the information from Vancouver Coastal Health, or do you think we can just handle it with our working group and see if they can come up with a simple answer? What's the will of the Assembly? Director McCormick?
Perhaps a comment from staff as to which would be the appropriate direction for them.
What does our staff think is the easiest way forward?
Through the chair, I actually think it's kind of complicated myself, so I would suggest go through the working group.
Okay. Yeah, we can go through the working group and provide a bit of pressure on that aspect. And if we get nowhere, we'll bring it back to the hospital board and maybe get a little firmer. Okay, and with that, I'm going to move on to 12.2, Hospital District Audited Financial Statements 2024. Would someone like to make the motion? Director Brander, Director Lennox. Okay, open for discussion. We've already kind of eaten this one up a bit. Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None. That is carried. And moving on to bylaws, there's none. No new business. Question period.
Hello, Chair. Galinsky from the Peak here. I'm online, but I don't have any questions this afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity.
Oh, it makes my answers very easy. Okay, we have a proposed in-camera session, 16.1. Would someone like to read that out? Anyone? I could read it out.
I'll read it, Chair. That the board move in camera and that the meeting be closed to the public on the grounds that the subject matter to be considered relates to matters covered by the community charter under section 90 sub 1. E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements if the board considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the regional district, and N, the consideration of whether a board meeting should be closed under a provision of this subsection or subsection 2.
Okay, and a seconder, Director Elliott. All in favor? Any opposed? None. That is carried. We are going into closed session. Make sure.
Their agreement is available on
Okay.
the housing website.
Oh, okay.
It's a generic.
Yeah, because they sent it to me, but I said to them, send it to.
I've got a website link. You can search it. It's public.
Chair, as soon as we hear recording in progress, then you can, we're back, officially back, but let's make
Oh, really?
audio very well.
We still got 14 minutes before recording.
Business is a
Recording in progress.
Okay, we are back from our closed session and we have nothing to rise and report. And with that, this meeting of the Regional Hospital District Board of Directors is adjourned.